Hi, this is Paul Pope, Evaluation Specialist with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. In this session, we're going to be covering the basics of the Qualtrics reporting tool, and we'll be covering topics such as how to edit the output, what's useful in the results, what's not particularly useful, using filters, and then options for exporting results to share with others. So the reporting function in Qualtrics is a survey level activity. So you do the reporting within an individual survey. So in this case, I'm going to pick this irrigation water management of commercial landscape survey. You can see it has 28 responses. So we'll click on that. And as a first step, I'm going to show you what the survey actually looks like before we look at the report. I'm going to hit preview, and we can see that the survey starts with a retrospective post, the before versus after, using that 4-point scale. And you see there's 7 items on the left, followed by a question on overall satisfaction using our typical 5-point unipolar scale from not at all satisfied to completely. And we also have satisfaction on some individual elements of the content related to the activity. We have a question on anticipated economic benefit as a result of the activity, and would you recommend the activity to others, along with a open-ended question on what they like most, like least, or any other topics they wanted to talk about. So this is the survey. Now let's look at the report. So you access reports up here at the top. Just click on reports. And you can see it generates a default report here at the top left. And what we see is a chart on this first question, a statistical table that has some descriptive statistics such as minimum, maximum, mean, standard deviation, and variance, along with the count or the number of responses for each of those individual items. And then there's what Qualtrics calls a simple table, but it's what we think of as a frequency table. So for each of those items, we have a number of responses for that category, along with the percent of the total. In this case, 3%, or 3 of 27, which is 11.1%. So now the reason it generates these 3 particular tables is because that's what report settings indicates. If you go over here to the right and click on the little cog icon and go to report settings, you can see the default visualizations has all 3 of those: the chart, the simple table, and the statistical table. If for some reason you don't want those 3, you can uncheck any of those. You can also change the default color of your charts and some other settings as well. If for some reason you wanted to exclude certain questions from every report, you can go to Edit Report here and uncheck one or more questions that you don't want to include in a report. So that's another way to customize these. You can also see, this also shows the total number of responses along with the filtered. So in this case, you can tell it's not filtered. There's 28 responses, and the filtered count is also 28. So now looking at the actual report, let me go down to I want to come back to this retrospective post, and instead, for now, go to a simple question. We'll pick number 5. here, which is, do you anticipate an economic benefit as a result of attending this activity? You can see the options are yes, no, or not sure. The x-axis is the number of responses. So you can tell for the number, for those that are responding yes to the question, it's 19. You can also float over any of those bars and get the actual count. If for some reason you didn't like this particular chart, you can click on it, and on the right you can see there's some options that come up. You can see it's right now it's set on bar chart, but you can change that, say, to pie chart. And that's what that looks like. You could also select breakdown bar. And that's what that looks like. I actually like that better than their version of the pie chart. You can see it has the percent along with the label. You could also add response count on this if you wanted to do that as well, along with the percentage. So you have some options here. So I'm going to go back to the bar chart, and well, let me show you one other option here. If you wanted to break this bar chart down by some other variable, you can click on breakout by, and we'll do it by gender, for example, and see that question. You can break down the chart by male versus females. So that's another option you have associated with the bar chart. What's next is the statistical table. Note that it generated one for this question, even though it really doesn't make sense. This question is categorical, where yes is coded as 1, no is coded as 2, and not sure is coded as 3. Those are just arbitrary codes that we picked. So it makes no sense whatsoever to do any sort of descriptive statistics for this type of question. So in this case, if you don't want this table, and we don't, we can just click on it and click on remove visualization. Now just remove that chart or that table altogether. Now the next table is the frequency table, and you can see for each of the response categories you have a frequency along with the percent of the total. Again, you can click on this and you could break it down if you want. I'm going to do it again by gender, and you can see it's going to break it down. Now note that it's showing row percentages. What we really want in this type of situation are column percentages. So what you see here is, of those who said yes, 84% were male and 16% were female, but that's not what we want to compare. We want to compare the percentage of males versus females who answered yes. So what we want to do is come down here and change this to column total, and that gives you the column percentages. So now we see that 73% of males said they anticipate economic benefit versus 60% of females. So be aware when you break down a question, frequency table, to see if you really want row percentages, or more likely you're going to want the column percentages. So, and then I'm going to change this breakdown back to none. So that's kind of the breakdown of what Qualtrics provides in terms of each individual question. So let me go back to the retrospective post, which is the first question. And again, the first thing it produces is a chart. This chart is not useful at all. It tries to show each of those items for each of the scale points, and it just doesn't make sense, and it's really not suitable to present to anybody. So this is another case where I would just delete the chart for a retrospective post question. What we really want is the next two tables. The first is the statistical table, and again, we're looking at just the before the program part. And you can see it has the means. Those are going to be useful to us because we can go to the after part and get those means as well, and we can use those two sets of numbers to do a percent change in the means. So from the statistical table point of view, what you want to use is the mean column before and after. And then going back to the before again, on the next table, the frequency table, another way of looking at change after versus before is the percent of people who responded they were at a good or excellent level of understanding before versus after. And so we can take these two percentages for good and excellent for each item, combine those, and compare that to the after percentage for that item, good plus excellent. So that's another way to use the data that Qualtrics provides. It's something you have to do manually. Qualtrics doesn't produce that comparison automatically. So if you go to our Qualtrics support page, which is tx.ag/Qualtrics, that's txag/Qualtrics, you'll see a help guide on there that's called Using Retrospective Post Data from Qualtrics. And that shows you how specifically how to download these tables that we just went over in CSV format into Excel, and then how to set up Excel to do the custom tables that we're used to seeing when we run scan form data. So be sure and look at that help guide before you tackle this retrospective post data. Now the next topic is how to add a filter. So if you want to look at a subset of your data, maybe just those of a certain age, how they responded, or of any income level, if you have that question. In this case, we're going to look at responses for those who are 50 or over. So I'm going to click right here on Add Filter, and we're going to go to the age question. And these are age ranges. So we're going to select your age, and you're right here, you're building a select statement. Your age greater than or equal to 50 to 54 or greater than that. So that includes all people are age 50 and over. And you see when you make that selection, all the data changes. So it's just for that group, 50 and over. So that's another way you can look at the data and analyze it and look at certain subsets of your respondent group. So in this case, I'm going to save it as a different file name. And actually, this is probably what you want to do first. You probably want to copy the default before you make your filter statement, but we can work with that. So I'm going to copy this report, and I'm going to say those age 50 plus And you can see now, along with the default report, we have this new report. So if I go back to the default report, what I want to do is, you can see it still has the filter on, and you can see about that by the number over here on filtered. So we want to remove this filter from the default report. So we're just going to hit this minus to remove it. And you can see it went back to the original numbers for all respondents. So now we have two reports, the default and those age 50 or over. So finally, if you want to share these results, you come over here to the share report button, and you can share as a PDF or a Word document or even PowerPoint. So these are the basics of a Qualtrics report. You do have some ability to customize and to change things, and appreciate you listening. Thanks.